Redditors who married the sister brother of an ex. Is it weird having your ex as a sibling, and how does yourself feel about the fact that you once dated their sibling? My dad dated my aunt first. He proposed and she turned him down saying she was too young, 18. 6 months later my mom and him got married. My mom was freshly divorced from a physically abusive man and had 2 young boys to take care of, so I think that had a lot to do with her motivation. My dad had a good job and had always had a thing for her. Just dated the sister as a second best, he said. Sad, but they were married for 25 years before he passed. However, I was raised believing my aunt was a drug addicted prostitute. My mom hated her because of an incident where my aunt tried to win him back by stripping and sitting on his lap at my first birthday. The whole situation was a family secret till I was older. My parents. My mom at 15 told her sister, who was dating my dad at the time, 3 years age difference, that she was going to marry my dad. My aunt laughed and said it's a girl crush. A few years later my aunt and dad had broken up. Mom and dad are both attending the same college, had a few classes together. She knew who he was. She seemed vaguely familiar to him. Eventually they started to date and get married after dating for 5 years. Mom's family loved him. Aunt and mom are still great friends and have always joked about it. As an adult I asked my aunt the last time I saw her, a few months ago. She said she always knew my mom was right when she saw them interact the first time after she and my dad broke up. My parents have been married since the 70s. Still act like teenagers. I think my aunt was the vessel that brought them together. My wife was my best friend since grade school, and for a brief period during our high school years I dated her younger sister. We had a mutual breakup after a few months and remained close afterwards. In college, my now wife and I decided to take our friendship to the next level. We were married a few years later and now have 2 kids. There is no awkwardness between any of us, and the 3 of us frequently go out to dinner together. Everyone is light-hearted about it and my wife makes jokes all the time. Like when she's sucking my cock, looks up at me, and says, "I love the taste of my sister's cunt." All of us are on a bowling team together, too. Well, there don't seem to be answers. I can come close. Currently dating younger sister of an ex. Ex and I were really close friends for years. Met her through another ex actually, and tried dating for a while. It didn't work because I couldn't really stop seeing her as a friend only. Younger sister always crushed on me and was flirty, but obviously ignored it because I really liked the whole family and didn't want to do anything to duck that up. Broke up with ex. About a month later the sister is up at college like 1.5 hours from me. We've been texting and she says she wants me to visit. One thing led to another and 6 months later here we are. Ex doesn't really talk to me when I'm around the house on breaks or whatever. But the family still really likes me, so that's a win. Maybe I'll update this post in a few years. I worked with a guy whose wife cheated on him and married the guy. The husband of the cheater consoled the wife of the cheating husband, and they ended up getting married. Now the kids still have their original parents but in a different rotation. People are weird. Here I was, just casually reading some of these messed up comments before I realized this situation describes my own family. Well, my parents met when my mother was going to law school in the United States on a scholarship. My father, as far as I can tell, was making most of his income dealing drugs. I always see their marriage as one of convenience. She wanted a green card, he wanted a lawyer, and some clean income didn't hurt either. Fast forward 10 years. They have 3 kids together, but fight constantly. My mother basically had 2 priorities, her children and her career. She made that work, but there wasn't much time left for the luxury life my father seemed to want. Since both of my parents weren't around that much, my mother's younger sister, who rebelled against the family's ideas of studying finance and pursued a career in music instead, would spend her summers in the US, taking care of me and my younger siblings, and things were going well for her, too. She had a mysterious lover who would take her on lavish trips around the world and shower her in gifts. Spoiler alert, it was my dad. When my mother found out, she filed for divorce and moved back to Europe. My father and my aunt ended up marrying and having 2 kids of their own, who are now both my half siblings and my cousins. My mother and father hate each other passionately to this day. and only see each other in court for the legal battle that has been going on for over 20 years now. Weirdly enough, I still think it turned out for the best. Both my parents are much happier than they ever were when they were together. My aunt is married to my mom's ex. My mom isn't too awkward about it, but my dad kind of hates the guy. Though the guy is kind of an ass, so I'm not even sure my dad hates him for that reason or even if my dad knows about that. For example, my parents are always tight on money, and when my dad offered to buy my aunt and uncle dinner, my uncle, who is also poor, orders top shelf liquor. Not me, but my brother dated a girl and then ended up marrying her twin sister. My physiology teacher tends to ramble on about her personal life instead of, teaching us physiology. She dated a guy in college, and when stuff didn't work out between them, her younger sister started dating and eventually married the guy. They're all still on good terms, and my teacher is fond of saying that her sister got the leftovers. I fooled around with my boyfriend's cousin when I was 16, 4 years before I met my now boyfriend. It was very odd upon meeting his family for the first time. Still have not verified with his cousin whether he remembers that I sucked his D at that party. I just found a famous story sort of. Beau Biden, VP's son who died. His wife is now dating Beau's younger brother Hunter, who is still married but getting a divorce. Seems ducked up. Did you doubt one? Because grammar, I guess. There was a guy on Tifu a while back. His girlfriend and her twin sister swapped places. Dude ended up proposing to the wrong twin. His girlfriend basically dumped him for not being able to tell the difference. I mean, it's not like he was stressed out or had other things on his mind. Anyways, I always kinda hoped he ended up with the twin. On a tangentially related note, I think it is Ron Wood, of Rolling Stones fame, who is married to the daughter of the woman who is married to Ron Wood's son. Correction, it was not Ron Wood, it was Bill Wyman. I have a story for both of my wife's sisters, but I'll just stick to one. This sister is my age and used to be my best friend. We came close to hooking up a few times, but I saw her as more of a good friend. I dated a ton of her close friends and eventually her little sister, who I later married and had kids with. As soon as I started dating my wife, the friendship went super downhill. She is always salty to both of us during brief meets, but when we spend a few hours or more together we have a blast like the old times. My wife has recently brought childhood books and notepads to our house for our kids from her parents' house. I found several doodles with hearts with the older sister and my name in them. I've pretty much messed around with every girl that she hangs out with. She's heard all the intimate details about what I've done with all of them. I found out she was once madly in love with me. She's let it slip that she loves me when we drink together as well. I now have a house and kids with her little sister and I feel horrible about everything. There were two sisters who, during their teen years, both adored a nice young man named Bill. They didn't like each other too much to begin with, but this drove them even further apart. He married one and had kids with her. The other sister married someone else, moved abroad, also had kids. Some while later, the other sister and Bill had an affair, and Bill and his wife ended up divorcing. He married the other sister, rendering the first cousins now step-siblings. The two sisters continue to hate each other all the more, and Bill's kids with his first wife call their biological aunt mom. Everyone seems to be happy jolly, but I've only seen from the perspective of the kids and the other sister. I'm sure had I known the entire view, it would be different. They don't mind. My ex is dead. This all happened before I was born, and I didn't find out until I was in my 30s. Try to follow along. I had an aunt Jennifer, who was married to Bob. Bob was a bit of a hound and apparently cheated on her quite a bit. Still, Bob and Jennifer decide to have a baby, and Michael was born. Bob ends up having an affair with Jennifer's sister, Anna. Jennifer finds out about Bob and Anna, and gets the duck out, and takes Michael with her. Soon after, Jennifer starts dating my uncle Rich. Rich and Bob know each other pretty well. They're not good friends or anything, but they seem to run in the same circle. Things start going well for Rich and Jennifer, so within 2 years, they decide to move in together and get married. In the meantime, Bob and Anna are going pretty strong, so they shack up and get married around the same time. Anna and Jennifer patch things up. and Jennifer forgives her. Over the years, things totally normalize, and they operate completely normally, at least on the surface, as Michael's dad doubles as his uncle, and his stepmom as his aunt. It was a very bizarre family dynamic, but it worked. TLDR, aunt got cheated on by her sister, left her husband, married my uncle, patched things up, and lived normally. This is only slightly related. My husband's sister is dating a man. His sister is dating my brother. So 3 sets of brother sisters all hooked up. At poker night my brother says everyone look to the left and say I'm sorry for ducking your sister. Not quite sure how it's going to play out at a breakup. Whose sibling you thinking of banging? Opie? My ex-son's father is currently dating his brother's ex-girlfriend. It was a really ducked up situation. The brother killed himself 7 months ago, so I am pretty sure he was not okay with their relationship. I was engaged to a guy for 4 years that ended because of his inability to keep his little wang in his britches when he left the house. His older brother briefly lived with us during a job transition and we became pretty good friends. Shortly after leaving the man whore, I catch up with the older brother over drinks. Cut to 3 years later and we are married. They never had a close relationship to begin with, so it didn't cause much trouble, but the man whore started dating a woman recently who has a major issue with the situation. She doesn't want me at family gatherings and refuses to let my niece and nephew stay with us anymore. We still haven't figured out what her problem is, but we haven't lost any sleep over it. Not me. The wife of my cousin actually dated his younger brother for nearly a year when they were teenagers. I remember it was weird when they started dating, with people in the family judging her. I'm coming from a big Catholic family. I think that the fact that she had 6 when she was only 15 was already shocking in the family at the time. Yeah, the early 90s. But now they have 4 kids. Older is 18 years old. Younger brother is also married and has 2 kids. Everybody is friend now. I don't even think that the fact they dated when they were teenagers is even a subject of conversation anymore. I can't imagine many people actually being comfortable with dating someone who has shagged their brother sister. Would make family meetings so ducking awkward. In Malcolm in the Middle, Hal dated Lois's sister then married Lois. The sister was pissed at Lois for stealing her marriage. The sister also had the kids a bunch of gifts like a car and a cotton candy machine. Lois didn't like the gifts, but in the end she still loved her sister, gave her a kidney, and wasn't mad or disgusted that Hal was with her. Especially because Hal said Lois was much better if a person, and that's why he married Lois, not her sister. Went on a few dates with a girl. We hooked up in my car, and then I found out she had a boyfriend. So duck that. Few weeks later, friend of mine introduces me to a girl he's dating. It's her sister. Small world. Friend turns out to be a big asshole. Me and the sister start dating. Kinda weird at first, but she's amazing. Meet her friends. Turns out her and her sister hang in the same group. It gets awkward. We date a couple years. I start attending family events regularly. Her sister starts becoming more comfortable around me. Sees me as a brother now. Still weird. Sister wears comfy house clothes when I'm around cousin family now. I see things I've seen before, but definitely should not be seeing now. GF doesn't seem to mind. Guess she's past it. 8 years go by. We're getting married next week. Her sister has been the most helpful person planning our wedding. Really appreciate everything she's done for us. Still weird. My grandma dated my grandpa's brother for years before marrying my grandfather. To this day I have no idea whether it was awkward or not, but they outlived all of them. After my grandmother died, 15 years before I was born, my grandfather got remarried for a few years before he divorced her to marry her sister. As a child I just knew the second wife as Auntie Beryl. I didn't know the whole sorry story until one day my cousin asked, "Did you know Granddad used to be married to Auntie Beryl?" Called him a liar and ran inside to dob on him to the adults inside, which included Granddad, Auntie Beryl and Grandma, third wife, and was met with an awkward response. By then everyone was pals, but apparently the first few years after marriage number 3 wasn't so chummy and involved some stalking and death threats. I just wanted to take this time to thank OP. I've been on this post since the first reply, and man, good morning Reddit. Way to keep it in the family. I really liked a girl all throughout high school and into college. We dated some, went to prom, and things were okay. But I could tell that she was never going to like me as much as I liked her. We sort of drifted apart. Then I found out she went on a few dates with my brother. I liked him better from every other account that I've been told. No one was married. It was pretty miserable knowing this girl that I really liked was way more into my brother. Ducker. Oh well. My family has a great confusing ducked up example of this. My mom is the youngest of 5, with 4 older brothers. My oldest uncle, Ken, dated a woman named Vicky. They broke up. Then my second oldest uncle, Jim, started dating Vicky. This was awkward, but my uncle Ken got over it by dating Vicky's younger sister Linda. So now my uncle Ken is married to Linda, his ex-girlfriend's, Vicky, sister. And my uncle Jim is married to Vicky, my uncle's Ken's ex and my aunt Linda's sister. It's ridiculous. No one cares. Oh, it was like 45 years ago. But it's still pretty funny that my brother uncles are married to my sister aunts, one of whom dated both of my uncles. This isn't terribly interesting, but seeing as there aren't many other answers, I went on a couple of dates with a guy. He turned out to be enough of a D that I didn't want to date him anymore, but we had the same group of friends and saw each other often enough. I'm now married to his younger brother, my best friend. They don't get along. We talked about everything once and agreed not to talk about it again unless something changes. He's understanding. Glad that we met through his brother, but would prefer not to think about it overly much. It helps that neither of us really speak to his brother and I don't consider him family. My cousin was married to a man and had a 4-year-old son and a baby daughter. She was in a deadly car accident that put her and her children in the hospital for months. Her husband wasn't hurt in the accident because he wasn't in the car. His brother was the driver and he was killed. That's how he found out my cousin was planning on divorcing him for his brother, the father of her baby girl. My brother and I dated a pair of sisters. Me and mine had to break up because I moved away for school while my brother married her sister years later. My ex married the guy she met right after me, who has the same name as me. It's extremely awkward and we try to avoid one another as much as possible. Know a girl who dated a twin for a really long time. They were engaged to be married. He died in an accident. She found comfort in the surviving twin's arms. They dated, got married, had a kid and named him after the dead twin. My mom was previously married and had kids with my uncle, my dad's cousin. She got to know the whole extended family very well since everyone lived in the same town, small town Mexico, so that's how she met my dad. It ended badly and she was too poor to move back with her family in another state, so my dad's family took her and her kids in. They lived houses down from her ex apparently, so everyone saw each other often. IDK how long she was with them before her and my dad started seeing each other, but it eventually happened. In the beginning he treated the kids like his own. They were family after all. But after a while he started resenting them. Now he doesn't like them being brought up. I didn't even know they existed until I was probably 10, and that was just because I overheard my mom on the phone. They stayed in Mexico with their dad, my uncle. Once my dad brought my mom and us, his actual kids, to the States. No one ever understood why he flipped suddenly, but they all still live in the same town and my siblings visit my dad's family, my grandpa and aunts, regularly. Nobody has a problem with it except for my dad. Not really the same thing, but my buddy's mom and his wife's dad got married before my buddy got a divorce recently. She went to school and started seeing someone else. So now his ex-wife is his stepsister. Yes, it is really awkward still. The summer before my freshman year in HS I messed around with my mother's boyfriend's daughter. Had my first blowjob from her and nearly lost my virginity to her. Spent the summer fooling around. She was pretty freaky and I was a 15-year-old dude. She was 17. So you can imagine. That ended when our parents found out. They were married a year and a half later, which I guess means I've been sucked off by my stepsister.